Let's be brutally honest right now. That's a big question.
I'm looking for someone who doesn't want to go to base camp, but they want to go to the very top.
Whether it's here, India, New York.
Civilization was born at happy hour.
That's what wins. That's what stands out. That's what people are interested in. That's what I want to know. The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson. Hello and welcome to episode 135 of the Hospopreneurs Podcast. My two guests today are partnered on the food delivery marketplace Providoor. Shane Delia, director of Delia Group Restaurants, and Jason Wyatt, the co-founder and executive chairman of Marketplacer, a global technology company that builds online marketplaces. Shane, having hosted his own TV programs, authored several books, and been a brand ambassador for Mercedes-Benz and HostPlus, joined Jason, a chartered accountant with KPMG, Morgan Stanley and General Motors, and the founder of BikeExchange, his original marketplace, to establish a premium food service in the height of COVID and support local Melbourne venues. Today's episode is sponsored by Access Collins, your one-stop shop for inquiries, reservations, and events. For full visibility and control over your bookings and inquiries in one central place, check them out at theaccessgroup.com.au. Let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome to the show, Jason and Shane.
How you doing? Thanks for having us on board.
Anytime. It's a pleasure to have you on. It's been a very interesting world that we've come through. 2021 now it is, and 2020 just shook everything up, and you two came together to create Providoor. So I was really interested in the work you're doing. It's been getting huge interest, particularly out of Melbourne, the origin of the business there. But guys, I'd actually like to know how you met each other.
Jason and I, we've been friends for a long time, but we met through the football club, the Western Bulldogs. We were both part of a networking group there where we just hit it off, mate. It was like love at first sight. We realised that we had a lot in common. We came from similar sides of town. We shared a lot of common interests, but our worlds were very different, but I think we held the same values the same. We really respected each other's core pillars, and that's a relationship that has come to fruition now. In my darkest hours when my restaurants were closed and I really needed my mates to stand beside me, it was a huge asset to me knowing that I had someone as amazing as Jace that I could lean on and get some advice. And now we've established something that's hopefully going to change the way people dine.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you think of those times when we first met, it really anchored around three core things, which is all value-based. I completely agree. But Shane and I are definitely friends and family first. We work incredibly hard just to make a difference. And then the third thing is we just love to have fun. And with those three common interests, we're forged as one of the great friendships definitely in my lifetime.
Beautiful match made in heaven, folks. Guys, I'd love to know a crazy hospitality story or exceptional hospitality experience.
Oh, I can go no further than the great man I'm sharing the podcast. So when COVID broke, Shane was kind enough with his inner sanctum mates to reopen for one night only the Maha Bar in Collingwood, and really 20 or 30 of Shane's closest mates got to experience an exceptional dining experience, but then turned into nearly felt like a World War ending break-free night with some of the best in Melbourne. So it was just an extraordinary locking experience that I'll never forget.
Tell me a bit more about that night then. Shane, maybe do you want to elaborate on what you're comfortable with sharing about that evening?
Oh, look, I've been really lucky. Jace sort of spoke about earlier. We worked incredibly hard, and it was funny. I was having a discussion with my leadership team this morning. The topic, which I find quite funny, of work-life balance came up, and I think that's the funny thing. If you're looking to get balance between your work and your life, you don't probably like either side enough to devote yourself to it. But we worked really hard. Had an opportunity to bring some of my mates together that have a similar work ethic, and when you bring a whole heap of people like that together, who are all like high performing in their own areas, sometimes shit can get wild. It'd been a long time since everyone got together. Fortunate enough, Maha Bar, even though it's my venue, I think it's one of the best joints in town. And we had a really good time. And it's what hospitality was about. It's about people that wanted to enjoy each other's company, good food, good booze, good tunes. And fortunate enough, I had the key to lock it up.
Thanks for sharing that story, gents. I'm interested in knowing, Jason, you've come in from the sounds of things into the hospitality industry, but Shane, you've been in it for a long time. I'd like to know what you really feel the hospitality industry is defined by.
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, you've called it out. We're in the hospitality industry. The core fundamental is to be hospitable. And I think a lot of people forget that. They're in it for ego, they're in it for profile, they're in it to make money. They don't want to have a boss. The entry point for hospitality traditionally has been quite low. So there's a plethora of reasons why people get involved. But at its core, it's to be hospitable. It's to provide experiences. And the mantra within Delia Group is to create memorable experiences that exceed expectation. And I think that's what hospitality is about. You know, as a customer, you want to come into a dining room and be blown away. And that time you've spent there, you want that to stay with you. They're the same pillars and the same drivers that we've taken into Providoor, because we want those experiences to be held not just in restaurants, but in people's dining rooms at home.
How have you gone about doing that? So how have you gone about extending that into the business that you're now in?
Oh, it's a continual working process. The amazing thing about working with Marketplacer and now like an online business is that you're continually looking for ways to improve, and the market is continually improving and giving you opportunities to connect. So from its infancy and really, you know, even though that it's been a great success story and we're nearly sort of, Jace, I think we're nearly getting to 12 months now, but it's still a startup, right? We're learning a lot about what we can do and what we can't do. But some ways are we're creating playlists that go in the venues and people can click on a QR code and it can create the music for the restaurant. Some restaurants are putting little scented candles in there. Some restaurants are putting placemats with menus in there. Some putting coasters. And now restaurants are even looking at what other sort of little aspects they can put in the sort of packaging and in the box to transport into the dining room. So that's a whole world and a whole part of our business strategy that we want to grow and we are forecasting to grow in the next 6 months. That's that immersive experience and how can we translate a restaurant experience into somebody's home.
Excellent. Jason, tell us a bit about Marketplace and what Shane saw in your business to assist with this business of Providoor.
It's really interesting because when you actually dumb down what Marketplace does, we just help people grow. And we enable businesses to grow all over the world through making it easy, through selling stuff they don't own. So it's the power of creating a connected commerce engine that enables them to supercharge. And that's exactly what happened with Shane. So Shane, unbelievable story. You could imagine a day when COVID hit and you owned 3 restaurants, including a new one just starting up at the airport, which would have made it the 4th. Probably not a great time to open an airport business in hindsight. And then you got 150 lives that you feed. That's the way I look at business. If you employ someone, it's a huge responsibility. You're in charge for their survival from a financial acumen perspective. And what happened overnight for Shane's business was very different to mine. Mine was thriving during that time period and Shane was dying. Like it was a catastrophic time. You've got fight or flight, and the Delia Group has fight. It's got fight at the core of it. And in that time, instead of nobody having a job and nobody having a purpose, what Shane did is he came up with this brilliant idea to create at speed and scale the ability for his customers to buy from Maha. He spun it up on Shopify, incredibly short period of time. He spent some money, put his money where his mouth was, and in a really short period of time, he created a great little sort of business where they were trading individually some great money, some great dollars, and delivering them through the Melbourne CBD. And then when Shane told me about it, I was just inspired. And the reality is that most people who speak to me about business, I kind of turn them into marketplaces. And I said, how do we grow this thing to be more than just you selling your own restaurant? How do we take all of the learnings around packaging, the recipe creations, the logistics structure, and how do we connect to create a platform that can help all restaurants not only survive during COVID, but thrive during COVID? And that's exactly what Shane and I did together in that time period. But, you know, to be honest, we were just the passengers. We had the technology, we had the capability, but Shane had the idea, the passion and the drive to really be a fundamental help for these restaurants during COVID. So it was just extraordinary to be a small part of that journey.
And Jason, you had some exciting news that you announced yesterday as well. So tell us about the news, something recent to help you scale.
Yeah, so what most businesses want to do? They want to be able to grow. And what often hinders growth is a lack of capital, or they can't afford to buy additional inventory, or they haven't got enough warehouses. So the concept of turning retail businesses or department stores or brands into a marketplace strategy and making it easy for them to service their customers but to sell things they don't own is something that isn't a sole problem for Providoor. It isn't a sole problem for just marketplace of clients. So we've been working really closely with all e-commerce platforms for some time, including Magento and Shopify, and basically making it easy for their customers to sell things they don't own. But yesterday, we're pretty proud to announce we're one of very small few Australian businesses that have ever got a global technology to actually take a strategic stake. And Salesforce Commerce Cloud announced that they've taken a stake in Marketplace to really accelerate that strategic path to all of their 6,000 customer base on a global basis.
Congratulations there. And it's obviously great news for businesses in the position of Shane's and yours together, but for other founders who are looking to work then with Marketplace to have that sort of support. So congratulations on that and good luck moving forward with it too. Shane, I'd love to know what you're learning about or exploring at the moment. So this could be personally, professionally. Tell me more about where are you pushing things forward or innovating?
Look, I've got 3 full-time jobs and there's only one of me. I've got a restaurant group to run. We've got a marketplace to run and grow and build, which is like 3 full-time jobs on itself. And then I've also got a media portfolio and a family, and I'm trying to stay married because divorce is expensive. And so you dedicate yourself fully to each of those. So what I'm learning about at the moment is that you can probably try to squeeze 26 hours out of a day, but there's only 24. How do I maximize my day? How do I get the most out of it? And that's through teams, right? I'm having to establish really strong teams in every single one of my worlds, and the reliance I have on those teams to be able to perform at a high level. I'm working with a guy named Kirk Peterson, who's got a business called Performance Shift, and it's all about high-performing teams and accountability and workplace culture and making sure that you've got the right people that are all aligned and focused on achieving the same outcomes. And I think for me, that's been a really big thing personally to help build my team. But the thing I'm focusing on and learning about the most is this new world that I'm in. It's about marketplaces, e-commerce. I've learned a whole new language, which Jason laughs when I try to speak it. It's about CAC and ROAS and SAM and TOM and all this bits and pieces, which I had no idea what was 12 months ago. But now it's my world. I'm having to learn it. I'm having to learn it at pace. I'm having to really understand it because when I'm talking to people in that world, it's what they breathe, that they live for it. Being the founder of a marketplace that's found so much traction and has so much opportunity, we have to grow really quickly. We're going through a huge growth stage at the moment.
What about in the hospitality industry, in retail? Where are things changing and what have you seen, maybe outside of the obvious move to digital? What are some more insightful changes that you might have seen now being on that ground floor?
I think in tradition, I call it traditional business, in bricks and mortar traditional hospitality business, where you're reliant on bums on seats. The biggest changes I've seen, and they've been welcomed, is that established hospitality operators are now a little bit more empowered to make decisions and enforce change in their business that's long overdue. And I'm talking about things like introducing a weekend surcharge. Now, a weekend or a premium surcharge is something that's in all business. You want to fly on the peak time, you pay a peak price. You want to get an Uber while it's raining, you pay a peak price. You want to sit in the right row at the MCG, you pay a peak price. But in restaurants, we just absorb it. So we absorb the penalty rates, we absorb the higher rates, we absorb the whole lot. And it's never made sense. In our restaurants now, we charge, and we don't charge the full whack. We charge a 10% weekend surcharge, 15% public holiday surcharge. And we're proud to say that we're fully compliant in regards to fair work and paying our staff the correct wages. And at the end of the day, we live in a community that wants equality and a fair go. So then there has to be a fair go, not just for the people that are dining in the restaurant or that are employed by the restaurant, but the employer needs a fair go too. So those changes have been great.
Do you know what, on that point, I was sitting in a restaurant actually in Queensland and they weren't really affected by COVID at all. But they've thrown the physical menu away. So you completely order through the QR code and on to the digital app experience. And I was just sitting there thinking and saying, could restaurants ever have dynamic pricing? Forget just the surcharge. They do dynamic pricing by the hour. What could be really interesting for the industry is to move to what airlines and the accommodation sector have done over 15 years ago. And that is to move to a complete dynamic pricing model that's digital driven. Whereas I think the only restriction to doing that in the past has just been behaviour has been that they've looked at a physical menu. But if you got away with that in restaurants, I think it could be incredibly successful.
I'll put my hand up for it. And I think that a lot of hospitality operators would. The issue, I think, in hospitality is it's been so segregated and there's not a unified front where you need everybody to jump on that and implement it for it to take off. Because otherwise we'd see what we'd seen in the past, which is probably not as important now, but you'll see a couple of your senior players try to make change and then you just undercut by everybody else, and then you end up having to revert back.
So what you have mentioned there as well, Jason, is so economists would call it menu costs, but it's the cost of then printing those menus in a more practical sense. But it's an interesting point there that you could be doing all sorts of things. I know there are businesses out there that are doing a lot more with the tech and AR. Like you could have that menu and have some sort of game that you play or some video, or you could have all sorts of animations and cool things you can do. But now there is that capacity to do these sorts of things. And have you, either of you, seen anyone doing that?
Yeah, so dynamic pricing is like, what I mean by dynamic pricing, I mean you can change it by the second. You're having a really busy night, you're running low on a certain product, and you put that product up by $3 to make more margin on it during the night. I actually don't think consumers would know. I've dined at Maha probably more than most. Granted, I haven't always paid Shane, but I wouldn't know what the price is of the average consumer. I'd know if I was being completely ripped off, if it was completely unreasonable for the service or the hospitality or the experience that I was receiving. But I wouldn't know whether it was $1 more for a certain dish on one night versus the other. I don't know anyone doing it, but I'm sure someone in your audience can grab the idea and I'll only take a 5% license fee forever.
Changing the price mid-service could certainly upset a lot of guests if they'd, say, bought something and then they come back an hour later and it's more expensive.
If they hadn't started their experience that night, they wouldn't know.
Unless they came back and had that dish a different night. It could do that with specials, but maybe, yeah, some sort of one-off thing. But feel free, anyone out there who wants to give that a crack, please, dynamic menus. I'm interested to know what your results are if anyone out there gives that a crack and lets us know. I'm sure Jason wants to know as well. Gents, I'm interested in the creative process that you employ to develop ideas and what you've done to grow. And together, do you have different methods, or how have you found that process of working together creatively?
Look, Jason and I, like we said, we've always been really good mates and we've stayed in contact and everything else. But, I just don't think there's a person on earth that I speak to more these days than Jason. We're constantly bouncing ideas off each other. I'll get phone calls from Jason middle of the day, middle of the night saying, hey, had an idea, what do you think about this? And then it'll be the same thing with me. He's my reference point. And at the end of the day, I'm the apprentice in this journey. Jason's the master. So I'm going back and forward and bouncing ideas. And what I've learned through that process is it's that old sort of thing about there's no stupid question, because some of those stupid questions that we've had discussions about have become some of the most crucial parts of Providoor's journey. And it's been a real collaborative process. And we spitball things. Some of them are real pie in the sky things that we put on a whiteboard and it's something we'll look at in the next 6 to 12 months. Or some things we go, wow, that's something that has to be achieved right now, and let's put everything behind it. Having a partner like Jason and the marketplace, a team, is there at the top of their game. You've got the best in the business working there. So you don't just get the tech. I get the expertise, the support of a team that's all in. They're right into everything we're doing. They get it, and they are 3 steps ahead on every decision. It is a real collaborative process. Just on, I think, Tuesday, I'm having a bit of a pit stop with my team and Jason. We're going to come in and say, all right, mate, this is everything we've been working on. What do you think? And just get his perspective, because he sees things at a different level. His world's different than mine when it comes to professionals. So it's been an unbelievably collaborative experience.
I completely agree, but I think Shane's been quite humble on the other side of it, in that what we often find with our clients is we know our world. Like, so Shane knew the hospitality world incredibly well, but we knew maybe the marketplace world. But what was the most impressive is not only, because Shane and I were always, we're cut from the same cloth, we've got the same values, but how our teams gel together, and the marketplace team become an extension of the Providoor team, and the Providoor team become an extension of the marketplace team. That was the most impressive part of it. It's just a testament to, in a very short period of time, to the talent that Shane was able to grab into the Providoor business to be able to do that. Yeah, I think it's that having that one team approach to enable growth has been the key success.
Who have you each looked to for support? Do you have other, I know people talk about mentors in their lives, or do you have other professional mentors or boards, or how does that sort of work for your decision-making process?
Through the Providoor journey, it's been really inspiring to see some of the people who I've had relationships with now become really trusted advisors. And we've set up a board of advisors. Jason, who's one of them, a gentleman named Chris Nolan, who is a media genius. We've been working with a gentleman as an advisor named Tim McKinnon, who's at eBay, who's been advising us on some strategy, and a plethora of other people from the financial world and from TV and from a wide variety of industries who have all carved out their piece of Providoor and really owned it. And so for me, it's been great because I'm not walking in the dark. I've actually got people around us who are really, really keen on what we're doing and mutually invested. So, and are all learning along the way and working together. So it's been a great journey.
And for you, Jason?
In marketplace, I've been unbelievably fortunate. I've always grabbed mentors. I just think if you can get smart people who have done it before, that doesn't have to be the same experience, that they can help you. Peter Bartels, who was the former CEO of Coles Myer and Foster's globally, has been our business mentor basically since day one. People like Jerry Ryan, who owned Jayco, have sat on our board, and we continue to develop those mentorships. So, for example, when we've launched and gone really hard into America with Marketplace, so we've got Bob Swartz to help us in that market, who was one of the original presidents of Magento globally. So I just think if somebody's walked the walk before, even if it's not a similar path, you're mad not to get that mentorship in whatever you're doing.
Who have you looked to in terms of a model to develop the Providoor brand as well? Is there a business out there or businesses that you are inspired by that you've taken some ideas from?
There are a lot of food delivery platforms globally that are starting to emerge. Fortunately for Providoor, there isn't any that are doing what Providoor is doing. Okay, so we connect restaurants directly with customers through a marketplace. There's food platforms where you can get chef-written meals and dropped off. There's stuff where you can get 3/4 cooked meals and where you can get chopped up veggies and you have to cook it yourself. But there's no platforms that are connecting a restaurant directly with a customer and servicing the whole state or taking that product interstate. So we open up the market for people beyond the traditional realm. As far as inspiration goes, we're the masters of our own inspiration. As much as we're looking external for support and inspiration in regards to tech and innovation, when it comes to the brand, we're solely inwards. We don't want to be governed or guided by what's happening externally. We've got the best of our restaurants at heart. And at its core, we're here to service restaurants. Okay, we're here to service restaurants and get them and connect them to millions of customers nationally and internationally. That's the big dream for Providoor. We want to connect the world's best restaurants with the world.
Yeah, so are you using models of service? I'm sure that you think there are other businesses out there that are doing these things well. I mean, having a marketplace isn't a new model. And I mean, Jason, that's what you do. That's literally your business. And then Shane, coming from the hospitality industry, service must be something that you're looking to. And it's something that you mentioned earlier in the episode. What sort of businesses out there are you looking at that you believe are doing things well?
I wouldn't even have a clue. I haven't got time to look outwards. I really don't know. If I've got time to analyse what my competitors are doing, I'm not focusing enough on what we're doing. That's the blunt truth of it. My day started this morning at 6 a.m. and it won't finish tonight to 1 a.m. And it happened yesterday. That's going to happen today. And that's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, what about adjacent industries? Maybe we're talking about hospitality and service and tech too, but are there other industries that you're learning anything from, or purely just looking inwards at what the business is doing and reacting to that? Or is it data, or what is it that's really driving things?
It's not reactive. We're constantly reevaluating what we're doing. We're analysing and surveying our customer base to gain insights to what our customers want, and then trying to project what the global customer will need, looking at inefficiencies within our supply chain and looking at how we can make it more profitable for our restaurants. Because at the end of the day, if the restaurants aren't winning and the customers aren't having an amazing experience, then we're failing. We're looking at how we can create better content, how we can make it easier for our customers, how can we evolve our packaging to make it, more user-friendly and environmentally friendly. So there's a plethora of areas that we've looked at within our business that we're looking to improve. But at the end of the day, we need to improve frequency and improve revenue for our restaurants, because if they don't survive, then this whole thing falls over.
You know what's interesting? I think it's where Shane's at in the maturity of where Providoor's at. There's so much low-hanging fruit that he can do today without having the anxiety around necessarily what too many others are doing. I think, if you grab the marketplace journey, we're at war with our competitors. We have similar competitors in a similar space where we do huge competitor analysis, we do benchmarking reports, and we're competitive beasts, and we want to create the best technology company in the world. But we're a 10-year-old business with maturity and scale, whereas where Shane's at is he's nearly the anniversary of Providoor now, and there's a list of 50 things he knows he can do to incrementally grow the business in the next 6 months without doing any of that work. Maybe that's a fair assessment for you, Shane.
Yeah, I'd say so. We're firmly focused. Our eyes are on the prize. We know exactly what we have to do, and we're running full steam at it.
It is a very good point there. Thanks for elaborating a bit more on that one too, Jason. I have a question about Providoor. Let's stick with that one there. What is your biggest challenge right now? So what is it that's giving you the most friction?
Personnel. We're looking to grow our team, and we want to grow our team with the best in fields. We're a startup company that's achieved unbelievable results, but we're still a startup company. So we're going through a process now. We're about to double our team in size, and then in another 6 months, we're going to double it again. So we're trying to identify growing pains, right? We're identifying what the roles are, what that we need those roles need to fulfill, and then who the people are that are going to fulfill them so we can achieve the outcomes that we've set in front of us. So it's exciting. It's really exciting. It's nice knowing that money's not an issue because it has had its early success. So we can go out and do it. We're not restrained by not having the funds to do it. We've got the funds to do it. It's about now, how do we do it? And how do we do it properly? And how do we get the right people along for the journey to make sure we achieve outcomes that blown our expectations? Watch out. We're looking for staff. So anyone listening that thinks they can contribute, keep an eye because there's going to be a lot of ads going out soon.
Ultimately then, because you mentioned working towards those outcomes. So ultimately, what is the outcome that you're striving for? What is success for Providoor?
We want to be the world leader in connecting restaurants to homes. We're not looking at this as a Melburnian COVID solution or an Australian business. This is a global business. We firmly believe that. We firmly believe we can revolutionise the way restaurants connect with customers and customers connect with restaurants. We think that this is the opportunity the hospitality has needed from taking it from a traditional archaic system to a real business that has true scale and that can produce some significant change in the world. Think about this. No one's travelling, right? All right, no one's travelling. You can't go anywhere. You can't go to your favourite restaurant in Paris. But we're hoping you can dine in that restaurant in Melbourne that you've longed to visit in Paris through Providoor. So there's a lot of opportunity. You need to dream big. You need to reach for the sky, but you need to have the guts and the work ethic to achieve it. We think there's an amazing opportunity for Providoor and for the people that we represent.
Perfect. Thank you. What a great answer there. Thank you, Shane. Since you're on the roll there, Shane, I'm going to ask you the last question of the episode, and then I'll ask you next, Jason. Shane, who would you like to hear on the show?
I don't want to sound like I'm being dismissive, but I don't need to hear from anybody else at this stage. The people that I want to hear from are surrounding me and the world's bringing to me. So I just don't have time to look at what anybody else is doing, to take time out for that to influence my day, to focus on what we're doing.
Jason, do you have anything to elaborate on that one? Who would you like to hear on the show?
I always start with the problem they're trying to solve. So I'm not in the hospitality industry so much. I'm in the technology industry. So, and I can only talk from my perspective, but what's interesting in how to gain inspiration or knowledge, I always like to, what problem am I trying to solve? So at the moment, I'm trying to solve the problem to grow one of the world's greatest technology companies. So I personally would like to hear from people who have done that before and not necessarily ask for the secret, but just to hear the nitty-gritties of some of the deep problems they went about and how they went about solving them on that sort of that global scale.
Who do you want to hear from, Jason?
So the reality is I'm very fortunate in my business. We're unbelievably well connected on a global basis. So the people I talk to, the global leaders of Salesforce, the global leaders of Commerce Tools, the global leaders of Shopify, the global leaders of Magento, the global leaders of lots of technology companies. For me, it's the CEO founders of those businesses that can really help me. So there's probably two types of buckets of people. There's founders who have done it from zero, and they're the hustlers. They're the people who have come up with the idea and scaled it to a certain level. But then there's that next layer of person who have taken it from a growth to a scales phase. They're some of the corporate leaders. So that's who I'm really interested in, not only just from start to a certain level of business, but from how do you get that from that mid-sized business to become truly a global economy in its own right.
Do you have any brands that come to mind or people that have done that successfully?
Yeah, you look at the Atlassian boys in this country, it's an extraordinary story. So Mike Cannon-Brookes, that's an unbelievable story. The Canva story within Australia if you're talking about Australians alone, is an incredible success story. What's interesting, to make a business work in Australia is bloody hard in my experience, right? Especially in e-commerce. We have a really large country with the majority of the population in three core capital cities. And we even discovered this with Providoor. Like the density of Melbourne, and to make it work in Melbourne, once you go to Sydney, it's nearly going to a different country, moving the Providoor model into Sydney. And then they're similar to Brisbane. So to make a startup and to make a business work in Australia is incredibly hard because we've only got, 23 million people, 22 million people. If you did the same thing, if Shane did the same thing in the United States, in LA alone, this would be a $1 billion marketplace. I had no doubt in my mind during COVID because your addressable market and your customer base is just so easy to get to and it's so big. So these Australian businesses that can make a technology company work in this country, it's great to hear how they've molded it and then scaled it on a global basis because 9 times out of 10, if they've nailed the core principles here, these things are going to be rocket ships by the time they head overseas.
Often it's the case, I've heard people say that Australia is a good market to test things in and then take them elsewhere. They often say the US to really scale. Is that right? Is that something you'd say too?
Yeah, I originally founded a company called BikeExchange, which is now the world's largest bike marketplace. And what we found is it's culturally, like America's a very big country, and there's clearly 5 or 6 different segments within the United States that you've really got to go and attack. The majority of the problems you solve within Australia really help you culturally within the United States. So typically what works here does work in America. But the one thing I will say from doing it twice now is taking an Australian-born and bred business into the United States is don't undercapitalise that USA expansion journey. Make sure if you're going down a VC route or you're going for growth capital by the time you get there, make sure you've got your checkbook ready because it's incredibly large, it's incredibly expensive, but the size of the prize is extraordinary if you can pull it off. Thank
you very much, gents, for joining me on the program today. It's been a pleasure having you both on.
No worries, mate. Thanks for the time.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
This program is hosted by James Henderson with technical production by Jake Olver. Voiceovers were by Angus Brennan and Shim Phelan. Thanks to our distribution team, and a special thanks to you for tuning in every week. This program was produced by H Media. We'll see you soon.